Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. High school can be an exciting and stressful time for students and their families. Not only do they have to navigate their way through classes, activities, and each other, they have to figure out what they will do with the rest of their lives. Not too much to ask of a teenager. Part of a student's big future may be asking or deciding what college they're going to go to. Among the questions students will ask are, what school is right for me? What am I interested in? Do I need to take the SAT or ACT? What should I write about in my essay? How am I going to pay for college? These and other questions are the source of a great deal of agita for the typical student. And if a student is first generation to attend college, this journey is even more stressful. To help our students better understand how to navigate the college waters, today we welcome Vincent Alvarez, Associate Director of College Board's BigFuture Student Engagement Program. Mr. Alvarez, welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me today.
So let's go ahead and get right into things and kind of tell our listeners just what is BigFuture and how long has it been around?
Of course. BigFuture, believe it or not, has been around well over a decade. And it's really a tool. It's an online guide that helps millions of students and families every year figure out that path. As a former counselor, everything you just mentioned about figuring out life after high school for students and families is exactly true. It's very complicated. It's stressful. It's frustrating at times. I'm happy to share that at BigFuture, we have simplified that path by recommending small steps that all students can take at various times throughout high school to explore careers they may be interested in, look at colleges that offer majors that will help students get into those careers, and then most importantly, right, understand how to pay for college. We offer financial aid guides, a scholarship search tool, and every month, and this is really the crowning jewel of this entire process, is every month we give away two $40,000 scholarships and hundreds of $500 scholarships to students who complete steps on our dashboard. We're
going to get back to that money figure in a little bit because I'm sure our listeners will love to hear more about how they can get some of that, especially with this whole thing with the Biden administration with forgiving a lot of these loans and whatnot. But we want to make sure that students have as much of an opportunity as possible to be able to get that free money that they don't have to worry about paying back, so they don't have to worry about anybody giving them like forgiving loans or anything because they won't have any loans. But we're going to get to that aspect of it in a little bit. I want to explore a little bit because I knew you just mentioned it, and I knew that part of your background is that you were a high school counselor. So when you were that counselor, what was some of the advice that you provided to your students who came to you asking those questions?
Yeah, definitely. And it was not too long ago, just a couple of years removed now, but a lot of the conversations revolved around where I want to go to school, right? A lot of that focus was on the school, and I would sort of push back onto students and say, hey, you'll find the right school, but before that, you really have to figure out, what are you interested in? What career are you thinking of going to? That will guide you to the right school, because then you'll be able to understand, okay, this is the best school for me if I want to become a anesthesiologist. This is the best school for me if I want to go into software engineering. So it really comes down to students exploring what they're interested in, what careers align with things that they like to do. We recently launched a career quiz like a week and a half ago that students can now take on BigFuture. And this quiz is very short, straight to the point, takes no more than 15 minutes. And students enter their likes, things they like to spend time doing. And at the end of this quiz, they actually get a personalized list of about 30 careers to explore. And on our site, they can explore careers anywhere from how much will I make working in this field to what do I actually need to study. And when they see that information, then that helps them determine what is the right school for me and what's the right next step for me, whether it is going to school or going straight into career.
And, my next question was going to be, what can a student do if they don't have an idea of a major or even a career? But you kind of just answered that question. So let me ask you this. Where can or how can students get access to that little quiz, that test that will give them all that rich information?
Of course, students can head to BigFuture.org, right? If they have an account, they just log in. If they don't, it's really straightforward and simple to create one. And they'll be taken to the dashboard. And I wish I could show it to you, Kevin. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's modern. It's updated. And it shows the student the 6 steps. And one of those steps is exploring careers, which takes them directly to the quiz. And just to reiterate and just to make this very clear, this is a free resource. There's no charge for students to use this. So any listeners, right, keep that to memory. BigFuture.org is where you can access all of these amazing tools.
So they go to BigFuture.org. They go to the dashboard. They set up their account if they don't already have one. They see these 6 steps. So what are the 6 steps that they would actually go through?
Of course, you start off with just building a college list, right? Putting together a list of schools that they potentially are interested in. Then there's practicing for the SAT. There's making sure the list is balanced, that they have good options. There's applying for FAFSA. There's applying to colleges, and of course, exploring careers to get this all started.
So they'll see all these steps right there. So it's pretty much very simple for them to set up their own plan of attack and to make the whole college process not seem as daunting as a thing that they thought it once was.
Of course, and it is still very complex, but what we hope to do with BigFuture is just make it a little easier so that when they're not at school and they don't have access to their counselor, they can just go online and see the steps right in front of them and be taken through that process.
Back to your background just a little bit, because I'm sure that we also have some other school administrators and counselors who are listening as well, trying to get some tidbits and some resources that they can pass along to their students. So when you were a counselor, what was your typical caseload of students? And what did you feel it was a manageable number of students to be able to effectively help each one of them? Because I know that high school counselors now feel that they are just inundated with hundreds and hundreds of students that they have to see in a particular period of time, and they don't feel that they're really giving them enough attention that they properly deserve. So what do you think, in your opinion, in your experiences, is a good manageable number to make sure the students get exactly what they need?
That's a great question, Kevin, and it really differs all across the country. I know the average caseload right now is hovering around 400 to 500, which is insane, right? To think that one person is responsible for getting 400 to 500 students to their goal. And I was fortunate enough to work in schools in my past where I never had more than 200 students. And I know 200 sounds maybe like a lot to the average listener, right? But for my counselors, administrators listening, they know 200 it's pretty manageable. You get through it. And I think there is no ideal number because it really comes down to sort of the resources you can put in their hands. And a resource like BigFuture really alleviates a lot of the legwork, right? Being able for a counselor to say, hey, these are the 6 steps you need to do anyways. Do them on BigFuture. It helps you, it guides you, and then the counselor has a little more space to breathe and handle some of the other work that is on their plate. So it's really, our goal isn't to replace a counselor. Our goal is really to be a tool that's side by side with counselors as they help students, right? And as you mentioned, right, as they are inundated with this large number of the student body, it's really a tool to help.
It sounds like the BigFuture tool, what it will do is kind of, in teacher terms, flip the classroom. So you're giving the student a lot more onus and responsibility in doing a lot of the legwork, and then they'll come back to the counselor and with what they've found and then discuss at that point, as opposed to the counselor doing all the legwork for the student, all that research, and then letting the student weed through it. Now the student does all the research and then comes back to the council with any questions that they actually may have.
Exactly. And like I would tell my students all the time when they were going through this process, right, I would always tell them, I can't want this more than you, right? I can provide you all the resources. I can, make sure your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed. But at the end of the day, the student and families, right, they need to jump into that exploration feet first and identify, right? And Big Future is a great way for students and families to really take a look at this journey from the inside and get an idea of what comes next.
So is the information and the resources available, is that also presented in any languages other than English?
Yes, we have a bilingual, so we have Spanish that I know is available. There are some other languages that we have included for students to access, and there's always a customer service email and number that students can reach out to should they need a language that's not available.
How can Big Future help students and families navigate the process of actually paying for college? Because we know it's one thing to get into college, and we'll get into a little bit more details on that in a moment. It's one thing to get into college, but it's also quite another thing to now figure out, okay, how are we going to pay for this?
Yes, this is probably the most important part of this process, right? Students, you've done the work the last 12 years of school, more than 12 if you did pre-K and all that, right? Parents, you've done your best to guide your students to make the right decisions and be ready for this moment. And the last hurdle really is paying for college. And I'm happy to say that we have guides that help families understand the true cost of college beyond the sticker price, beyond the huge multi-$1,000 cost they see online. And we have guides that help families navigate and comprehend the FAFSA, right? The free application for federal student aid, which opens on October 1st. Quick plug for any parents listening with high school seniors. We have guides, right, that really help families understand this complex process of the finances of going to college. And beyond understanding the process of paying for college, we also offer a scholarship database where students can explore and match with over $4 billion of scholarships. So in addition to the scholarships that we give, we have a tool for students to match with outside scholarships based on their criteria, such as interest, their background, their accomplishments, in order for them to get some more of that free money.
Now, let's talk about that money a little bit more, because you mentioned before that College Board is giving out two $40,000 scholarships and a slew of $500 ones as well. So, what is the criteria to get access to that money? What do students actually have to do?
Yeah, so students, parents, anyone listening, right? There's no GPA requirement. There's no SAT requirement. There's no citizenship requirement for my undocumented students listening and any undocumented parents who may be tuning in, right? We are really looking to reward students' efforts. So all that's needed to complete these scholarships is, number one, have a goal, right? Have a goal for life after high school. You want to do something. You want to figure out what's next. Number two, get on Big Future and start completing those steps. When you head to Big Future, as I mentioned, the dashboard will lay out the steps you need to complete. And every time you complete one of those steps on Big Future, you are entered for an opportunity to win the $40,000 or the $500 every single month. So as students complete these steps, right, they're earning these entries for these scholarships. There's no application. There's no essay they need to submit. It's really just a matter of rolling up your sleeves and getting to work.
How many times can they enter? Can they just enter? Let's say they're entering in September. Are they only eligible for September and they can't enter anymore? Or is it like an ongoing process?
Every month that a student completes a step, they will be entered for that scholarship. And unless they win it, they will continue to be entered in future scholarships.
Okay, so it's an automatic thing. It's just based on them going into Big Future, completing the steps there in the database, and then they're kind of automatically tossed into the hat of other people to be drawn to see who wins.
Yep, and students whose families identify as low income receive double the opportunities to win the scholarship. So when they get an entry, they're really getting two entries. Oh,
I'm sure that is going to definitely be a game changer for a lot of our families. You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is Vincent Alvarez, Associate Director of College Board's Big Future Student Engagement Program. Staying on this topic of finances and scholarships, other than the ones we just spoke about, what other types of aid or scholarships are in that database that College Board will provide access to?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are a number of private scholarships that we sort of have access to. We have the information, the links that students can access the application certifications for. Beyond that, BigFuture also has the national recognition programs for various groups of underserved students. So think African-American students, Hispanic students, indigenous students, students in small rural towns, et cetera, where as they're recognized in this national recognition program, universities take that into account and award additional financial aid for any student who receives that status.
Let's say students go into BigFuture and they fill out the career profile sheet and everything, and they find out that the career that has come back that's matched up well for them doesn't necessarily require college immediately. Are there any resources that are still available to students? Can they still take advantage of some of the resources that College Board or BigFuture have to offer, even if their chosen career doesn't necessarily have a college component, so to speak?
Of course, right? When a student identifies or connects with a career that maybe says, no college degree required to get started, they'll also get additional information in terms of how they grow in that career, right? And if there's potential for them to go back to school later on once they reach a certain level and want to get to a higher level. So really the idea is not just to get students to graduation and the next step, but really for them to map out and have a vision of 2-3 steps beyond that. So for the students who maybe find a career that it says, you don't need college, you can start straight in this career. Excellent, right? Let's start looking at those opportunities that how can you get started? And then beyond that, at what point will you need college or will you need a higher degree to get that promotion, to get that pay bump? So it really allows students to see the full vision and then make a decision based on that.
Tell us a little bit about the BigFuture Ambassador Program and how can our listeners get involved with that?
Yes, that's my baby. So the BigFuture Ambassador Program, I run it. So if anyone has any questions and you find the link, bigfuture.org/ambassadors, you will email me directly. That's where the email leads. What I do in this program, Kevin, is I get student leaders from across the country who are interested and have sort of who have jump-started their college and career planning. And I meet with them. I give them resources. I set them up so that then they can go back to their schools and provide another layer of advocacy to their classmates, right? Because we know that peer-to-peer communication is so critical in getting students mobilized. So BigFuture ambassadors activate their classmates. They let them know, hey, go check out BigFuture. Even if you're not thinking about college, take the career quiz, identify some careers you're interested in. So really BigFuture ambassadors are just like these student leaders who are just crushing it in school, who step up and really lead the way by helping their classmates also get to that point.
Do they have to be seniors or can they be juniors as well, or even sophomores?
I have juniors, I have sophomores, I have freshmen. Most of them are juniors and seniors because they're a little more experienced, but there's no requirement for a grade.
Well, that sounds like an amazing program to get involved with. And I assume you have students from across the country who kind of meet, and I assume they meet virtually. And so not only are students getting additional resources that they can bring back to their own schools and their classmates, but they get to now network with other students from around the country as well.
Exactly. And we have over 900 student ambassadors, BigFuture ambassadors in New York, right? And we have, some special initiatives we're going to run in the state. So any student listening, any parent listening, right, send your student to BigFuture. They'll find out more about college and careers, but also they'll get leadership opportunities like being a part of BigFuture ambassadors. Is
there any special information or resources or even just advice that you can probably give for first generation college students or even some of our undocumented students? Yeah,
I mean, my biggest piece of advice is just explore as much as you can. Identify those schools that will provide you an opportunity. If you are undocumented, look into your local state schools and see what type of aid they offer for undocumented students. If you're first generation, I was first generation. I'm the youngest of 5 children. I'm the first in my family to go to college. So I understand the emotion that those students are feeling right now as they're preparing to make this decision. And my piece of advice is don't be scared. Just do it. It's tough. It's hard. Sometimes you feel like you don't belong. But at the end of the day, you're breaking barriers, you're breaking cycles, and you're getting yourself and your family ahead, and you're setting up the future generations. And if you think about it in that way, then nothing is insurmountable.
Yeah, I would imagine that, again, being especially a first generation student, first person in your family going off to college, that, or maybe even within your community, that you feel that you have the weight of everybody is just waiting for you and wanting you to be successful, to be that first. I can imagine the amount of pressure that a 16, 17, 18-year-old is feeling at that point. So just from a psychological standpoint, what can we tell those students on so that they don't crack under that pressure?
Yeah, of course. I know many of the students may not remember Finding Nemo, right? But there's a character named Dory that just keeps swimming. And at the end of the day, right, when it comes down to it, if you just put your head down and keep working, you'll keep going, right? Whenever you're walking up a hill, just lean forward and your body will follow. So just keep going. It's tough. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? That's why you're the first in your family, in your community. And trust me, right? Everyone is sending you the support. They're supporting you the best way that they can. My family really had no information about college, so I was blind doing this, but their love and their support was there for me, and that powered me through it. So use that energy to power yourself through it, and know that you're just making the world a lot better for the future of your family.
Does BigFuture, I guess, within one of those 6 steps, does BigFuture provide resources on writing the college essay and giving advice on what would make a good essay and what elements a student should be thinking about?
We do have some resources on BigFuture that help students write that essay, right? We let them know why they're important. You can browse different topics. We have tips for crafting the best possible essay. And that's really a great place for students to start to get an idea of what they should write their essays about. What
advice might you give for your former colleagues, other counselors out there who are looking for additional help and resources that they can provide to their students to kind of lighten their load when they're trying to support the students' journey into college?
Yeah, I would say, I know it's hard. School is back in session, and depending on whether you're back in person or hybrid or still some virtual, the best thing we can do for the kids is give them as many resources as possible, like nonstop. Like, yes, they may find it annoying, but there's going to be that one student who takes full advantage of one specific resource you send. And if you just keep sending them, enough students will take advantage of them. And I promise you that it's worth it. I have a number of students who have now graduated college, who just went back to college for their second or third years. And there's nothing more satisfying than to see these young people grow into the potential that we saw in them when they were in school, in high school.
So one more time, where can students and families go for more information on how to get a lot of these resources that will help them to move forward?
Yes, everyone, mom, dad, brother, sister, student, uncle, aunt, you can all go to BigFuture.org. It's completely free. You can access it from your phone. You can access it from a tablet. You can access it from a computer. You probably can access it from an iPod if you still use those, right? Anywhere you can access the internet, you can access BigFuture.org. And don't forget that every month we reward students' efforts in planning for life after high school by giving away 2 $40,000 scholarships and hundreds of $500 scholarships to students who take action on BigFuture. So head there today, get started. Your future, your way.
Now, I know that, that's amazing and everything. And most people think of College Board as just a way to prepare for the SAT or the ACT. Again, in your opinion, based on your experiences and everything that's been going on out there, should students still be preparing to take those exams? Are colleges really, and is that one of the steps in those 6 for students to really start concentrating and really preparing to take one or both of those exams? And which one should they take?
Yeah, I think students, the onus has been left on students to decide, but I always recommend to my students to take the SAT because it could be the great difference for them, when they're comparing against other students who didn't take it and have the same grades, because so many schools have different grading systems, different styles of grading. When the colleges look at your transcripts, for them, it's all the same, and they have to determine which school has a higher weighting system for grades. So when you can separate yourself, anything you can do to separate yourself and distinguish yourself in the college application, I'd recommend doing it. And yes, taking the SAT is part of that process of distinguishing your application from others among the bunch.
If you had to, to leave our audience with a final thought about what students really should be thinking about when planning for their futures, what would that thought be?
I would say students, keep an eye on the world. The world is changing. Society is so different today than it was a month ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. Generation Z is really going to change how things run, and just keep an eye on what's going on. Think about what you want to do in the future to make a difference in the world. And just know that you own your future. And the best way to set yourself up is to start exploring, start planning, head to BigFuture, because you really can take advantage of all these resources to set yourself up for college, career, and beyond. So take that for what you want, but just know that you are all the future, and what you do today will help you down the road.
Now, I know I said that may be the last question, but this is actually the last one, because I'm sure we have a lot of students, because we have a lot of students who aren't just juniors and seniors. We have some freshmen and sophomores. So I guess the question would be, when should students and families really start to plan for college? Should they wait until their junior year when I think it's too late, or how early should they really be starting?
I'll tell you this, Kevin. When I was in 8th grade, I received a piece of paper from my middle school counselor. I still remember her. And it had the California A through G requirements to be eligible for college. And that's when I started planning for college. Now, I don't want to say it should start in 8th grade, but I think the earlier, the better. The earlier you start looking at schools, start visiting schools, start feeling out college campuses, understanding what it's going to be like, the easier your decision will be. I can't tell you how many students wait until their senior year to start looking at schools, and even late into your junior year, it can be a little late. So really, as early as you can, start identifying schools, identifying what you're good at, what your interests are, because that will make your life a lot easier when you're a junior writing that essay, and then when you're a senior filling out those applications. The more you know, the better you will be.
Wow. Well, thank you. We would certainly like to thank our guest today, Vincent Alvarez, Associate Director of College Board's BigFuture Student Engagement Program, for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Have a great day.
Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.